Hello and welcome to the 6th episode of Powered by You. My name is Zino and I'm your host. For today's episode, we'll be talking about stop and search and we'll be finding more about the ins and outs of how it works. For today's episode, we're joined with Anthony Miller from the local Met, and we're also joined with Mohammed from the local community.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Hello.
How's your week going?
Yeah, all good so far. Hot weather, right?
So, is it a heat wave? I reckon just, is it reaching 30?
I think it's up there. Or there or thereabouts.
Man, do you know what? In London, in the heat wave, on public transport, definitely not the situation to be in. No. Especially when there's no AC as well. That's working.
I got the bus down here and I'm feeling the effects now.
Yeah, maybe you should walk it back.
I will be. Right.
What about yourself? I know you caught a bike.
Yeah.
You took...
No, but the thing is, you'd expect me to get sweaty and tired on a bike, but and despite the weather, but I don't really feel it. It feels calm. It feels...
What, as you're cycling?
Yeah, even as I'm cycling, I don't feel hot or anything. It's just probably because of the breeze and stuff, but yeah.
That's the thing. When I find a heat wave, there is no breeze. That's the issue why we struggle so much. There isn't that cool breeze rolling through that could keep you going throughout the day. It's just instant muggy heat that just... You're trying to gasp for air, but there's nothing there. But that's good. At least you're enjoying the weather. And one thing I did notice that we're always complaining. When it's raining, we're not happy. When it's hot, we're not happy. So what is the middle ground? When are we content? Spring?
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah. Spring.
But then I don't know whether to wear a jacket or, is it shorts, trousers, whatever?
What is it? You can wear whatever you want in spring. You don't have to choose. You get to choose, but you're not forced into a position. Like winter, you have to wear a jumper, this is that. And summer, you kind of have to, But in spring, you just get to pick.
Yeah. But I suppose what I've learned is always carry an umbrella with you. The mini size ones that can just fit in your rucksack, just in case you never know the occasion might come. It starts raining.
Have you got one today?
No. It's a bit weird me saying that you should, but then I currently don't have one. Maybe I should just, pop to Tesco's and get an umbrella.
Or you could check the weather app.
Yeah, I could do, but that's not consistent. I suppose it's 80% consistent most of the time.
I feel like it's more personally. I don't think I've ever personally experienced it be wrong other than one or two occasions.
Yeah, I suppose so. But then, what's your weekend looking like? Since the heat wave is still going, it's not going nowhere anytime soon. Are you going to Brighton or catch a bit of?
I'm heading down to Chichester.
Okay,
my friend's just moved in down there, so I'm going to go and see it. I think it's near the coast.
Okay,
well, it's not on the coast, but very near.
Is that like an excuse for you to go down there and just sunbathe?
Yeah.
Why not? What about yourself?
I'm staying here.
Man,
I'm still in school.
Right. Oh, yeah, but didn't you finish your exams?
Yeah, but we still have to go to school.
Okay.
We're learning new content for next year.
So learning doesn't stop for you?
Yeah, 100%.
So what year are you going into?
Year 13.
Oh, right. Okay, so you're doing A-levels, right?
Yeah.
So you've done the first half?
Yeah, basically.
Okay, doesn't stop, right?
Boy, you know what? Just try get some summer holidays in before you start your new academic year.
Yeah.
But on that note, I think let's find out more about each other. Can you tell me a bit more what you do in the Met? Because the Met is so massive. There's different departments, different teams. We spoke once yesterday, catching up, but I still don't have a full understanding about what your job entails. So if you just tell me a little bit more about yourself and...
What I'm doing right now is I'm a sergeant in the Metropolitan Police based at Kensington. I'm the Youth Engagement and Diversion Sergeant, so it's my team's role. There's me and 7 other officers to be a outreach team in the community and to offer young people up to the age of 25 opportunities to do physical, mental activities, help them out to have a more of an integration within their communities. And the aim for us is to prevent people committing crime. So they might be on the edge of crime, have committed crime, or just want to join in with things. And it's for us to take that more of a holistic approach and give them opportunities to steer them away from being involved in the justice system.
That's really great to know, because normally you'd say you work with people who are in crime, but because you mentioned this with everyone, it just opens up the door for all kinds of people just wanting to take part and just building that relationship with them. But I'm just curious, did you know about this?
Which part specifically?
This activities happening, taking part in that the local Met Police are currently doing?
No, I didn't know about that.
Okay, so you got to tune in, man. There's so many things going on. Even with stuff that we do as a council, sometimes we find it kind of as an obstacle to reach out to every young person, because we know some of them are not engaged, some of them are, but then we're trying to reach out to those who are currently obviously not engaged. So we'd find out, how would you choose to be communicated with, for example?
Probably, I think I don't really use Instagram. I have deleted Instagram, so it's kind of just TikTok and Snapchat that I mainly use, and YouTube. So it'd have to be through one of those.
Okay, all right. Would you follow the Met Police or the council, would you say, on social media?
Probably not. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay. You know what? I'm not surprised to hear that, but why wouldn't you? Just
like, no, as in like from here on maybe, but I mean as in like otherwise, like before.
Yeah,
this,
before this conversation took place. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Just when I use social media, it's usually for interest.
Okay, so you're saying it's not interesting?
Yeah, basically.
in a polite way.
Yeah, in a polite way.
Okay,
yeah.
All right. You know what? I appreciate the honesty. Like, there's no point in sugarcoating things. Otherwise, we won't progress. But yeah, just so how long has this community engagement been going on for? Is it a new intervention that's been put in place, or?
So it was tri-borough, so across Westminster, Hammersmith, Fulham and Kensington and Chelsea. And about 18 months ago, we split it and have it just as 3 separate teams. So I'm Kensington and Chelsea, been there for about 18 months.
Okay,
so it's still in its infancy, but moving on a little bit now to being a little bit more of an established team.
Do you actually spend equal amounts of time in the south of the borough in comparison to the north?
Yes, so we split it 50-50 and then have a Monday of between the two, so it could be anywhere on a Monday. So 2 days of the week, the Wednesday and Thursday we are in the south, Tuesday and Friday we're in the north, which leaves us on the Monday to what we do, home visits and community visits on a Monday.
Okay, all right. Because when you visit the north, there's so many facilities available to work from, or plan activities around. But then, do you find the same in the south, for example? Is there a lack of assets to work around? For example, football pitches, stuff to like halls and stuff, community spaces, I would say. Because
so a lot of the community spaces in the south are on the World's End estate. So we have the football pitch there, we have a youth hub, and we do kayaking on the Thames just across the road from there. So we have that small area, but do a lot there. Okay,
yes, three main activities that just, you know. Okay, yeah, because I remember people saying, growing up, because I grew up in the local area, and a lot of people that I went to school with used to, even though they were from the south, they would always come down to the north just because of so much options. I feel like you want to say something.
Yeah, I do. What I find really interesting about this borough, and I've worked in a few boroughs across London, is that it is split into two. People say the north and the south, and I don't know where that divide is.
You know what?
I don't know. How far up to the north do you go being from the south?
I think it's a historical thing.
Yeah. I think it's Holland Road, right? That's probably the dividing line.
I think. Don't quote me on this, but I think I've heard someone tell me a bit of a backstory to it. In the Victorian times, there used to be like a massive wall split in the north and the south, and people were typically split between social classes. So if you was working class, you'd be in the north. If you were if you were a middle class person, you'd be in the south. And people in the Victorian times or before then, people used to live with pigs in the house, have different different standards of living. And there was a divide because the smell would come over. People don't want to see that. It was just not a pleasant look. So there was a wall apparently in between the north and south. But even though this wall has been, taken down, but mentally there is a wall. It's
still there, but not there.
Yeah.
Metaphorically.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So it's just, it's amazing the way people do stick with the terminology north and south, and they say, "Oh, where are you going?" It's one borough, and I'm not sure if other boroughs do say the same. But you said obviously you've worked in different boroughs, and it's not like that. It's a bit unique that we do things here like this. I don't know if it's not. I wouldn't say it's a good thing having that division.
I think it's exactly that. It does create a bit of a divide. So
yeah, but now I think the north is north is catching up now. The north is, I would say, more commercial. It's becoming more commercial before. I don't know how long you've been in this borough for. You said 18 months?
Oh, no, I've been doing this job 18 months. I've been in this borough for 4 years.
Okay. So you don't remember it 10 years ago. You've never.
No.
Okay. Yeah. It was different, I suppose. Businesses that you wouldn't think would be here are here now.
Yeah.
Chains, commercial chains. So yeah, definitely evolving. But yeah, that's I think you may be too young to look back at.
100%.
Yeah, but I suppose we're here to talk about stop and search. But you do community engagement. Does that involve any sort of stop and search?
So we don't get involved in stop and search as much as other departments would. I'm not saying that it's off the cards because we're still warranted police officers, but we tend not to do as much as most other departments would. Okay,
but obviously, yeah, that makes sense because I'm assuming you've done this job for 18 months, but prior to that, you've had a long history within the Met and you've done other pieces of work.
Yeah, so I've worked in Lambeth, then I transferred over to Surrey, and I've worked in Tooting, Wandsworth, Battersea, areas just south of the river. I've been a police officer for about 14 years, and I was on sort of response team. I've done all the public order training, so I'm quite up on this topic to a certain extent.
You're well versed.
I'm not. Yeah, I don't do so much of it now, but I have done.
Okay, so you'll be the perfect person to tell me what is stop and search essentially.
Stop and search is a power that's been invested in a police officer to allow them, if they have reasonable grounds to suspect that someone may be carrying a prohibited article, to stop and search them, their person and the vehicle that they're in.
Okay, all right, that's
in a nutshell.
Okay, fair enough. And what would a civilian's right be when it comes to stop and search? Not many people do know what their rights are.
Yeah, so essentially there's absolutely nothing wrong with having a conversation with that police officer, asking them, why are you searching me? There's certain things that a police officer has to do in a stop and search. They've got to give their grounds, their objectives, so the purpose of being there. They've got to identify themselves, tell the person that they're detained for the purpose of the search, and give them entitlements to the record of the stop. And the individual can ask as much as they want to ask. And my thoughts are, and I appreciate I'm saying it from a police perspective, but if that person remains calm, they're probably going to get much more of, even though it is a fairly intrusive experience, but they're probably going to get a much better experience from a negative involvement with the police. I do appreciate that people do see it as a very negative thing. Yeah.
What do you think? Do you see it as a negative thing, or where do you stand from it? Like,
I feel like if you're getting stopped and searched, it can, like, it's hard to contain your emotions sometimes. Like, sometimes it feels like you've been wrongly stopped and searched. If somebody's just coming up to you and it feels like your space, your privacy is being invaded, to be able to then just say, remain calm. I understand that, of course, remaining calm is always the best option here, but sometimes it's a lot harder to do than, one would expect.
Yeah, no, I totally appreciate where you're coming from, and I think it is difficult to remain calm in those circumstances, and I can only sort of give that advice from my perspective because I'm kind of the other side of the fence to a certain extent. That most of my role is going to be doing the stop and searching, whereas a lot of the time the consideration or the thoughts or the well-being of that person may not have been considered at the time of the stop and search, and ultimately we're running off intelligence or whatever's been going on in the area at that point, and we wouldn't know you specifically from anybody else in the area. So if someone said, oh, there's a guy there matches your description that's got a knife in his pocket, it's our job, we're essentially paid to do that, to have that conversation with you and conduct a stop and search. I mean, there's many examples of stop and search, but
yeah, I suppose when he said containing your emotions and it's the best to remain calm, it's kind of a tough thing. It's easier said than done. But yeah, I suppose you have to learn to develop that. Well, I'm not saying you should be used to getting stopped and searched, but I'm saying you should be used to control your emotions and act accordingly, especially if it's in a public setting. But I understand sometimes people may get stopped and searched in broad daylight and the bus is packed and it just stops in slow, or traffic is stopping and everyone's just looking, who's this kid or who's this person getting stopped, and the kids just getting embarrassed, or their uncle walks by,
exactly, right, a relation or a friend, or
so that's when emotions start to dictate your actions, and it's you got to learn. That's why I'm saying it's a lot easier said than done. But then I would like to ask, can someone refuse to be stop and search?
Ultimately, if there's grounds for the police officer to conduct that search, no.
Okay.
They're detained for that purpose, and it's going to happen one way or the other.
Okay, so what must be included in the stop and search?
So the police officer has to give grounds. So say this is what it is and give that legal framework. So you have a number of different stop and searches, but the common two are Section 1 of PACE, which is to search for prohibited articles such as weapons, such like, and Section 23 of the Misuse of Drugs Act, which is searching for drugs, which is the most commonly used stop and search. And then they'd have to identify themselves. So from my perspective, I'd have to say I'm Sergeant Miller and I'm from Kensington Police Station. And if I'm in plain clothes, I've got to give identification. So I've got to show you my warrant card, say this is me, and let you know where I'm from. Then inform them that they're entitled to a record of this stop and search, which is now created there and then. It's not on paper, so it's done electronically. So they'll give a reference for the stop and search. It means you can just pop into any police station and you can get a copy of that stop and search, and they'll write up exactly why they did it, and but they'll tell you that anyway at the time, but you might not remember.
Yeah.
And then they have to tell you that you're detained for the purpose. And if you then decide, no, I'm not having that, I'm going to run off or whatever, you might be committing offences which you can be arrested for.
Yeah, you shouldn't run off. That's not advisable. You hear that? So yeah, just be. But it's good to hear that you're very carbon neutral, using less paper and giving electrical copies.
I think we're moving towards technology now.
Yeah.
And,
so
you can get a slip of it, which is going to give you a reference number.
What if you come across someone who's digitally excluded?
Digitally excluded?
Yeah, doesn't know how to use a phone, doesn't have a smartphone, doesn't really use a computer as much, and they want.
They can just give their name. So just walk in, say, I was stopped and searched on this road. This is me. Maybe have a bit of identification to back it up because you haven't got your receipt.
Yeah.
Here I was. It's a system that we just look up. So essentially, any ones that we were doing that we're recording on paper, we then just inputted it on this database anyway. But now we have the tablets and the laptops. We can do it there.
Okay. Have you come across someone that's ran away from you, or from a stop and search in general?
Have I? Yes, it's happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it just
it's
because?
Normally because look, they're either young messing around and or they've got something on them.
Yeah, which is definitely concerning. Yeah.
Well, for them, if I run, get away, then or it's discarded.
Regardless, both ways are still committing an offence.
Yeah.
So what does that lead to? The offence? Do they get arrested and does it go on your record, or?
If you're just arrested for an offence, that won't get on your record. It's if you're charged then later on via the courts or issued a caution or a fine. Because that wouldn't be a fine for running off.
Yeah. Because a lot of people panic and they start to think, oh, my life's ruined now. I've got stopped and searched. It's going to be on my record. What am I going to do? So I think that's a rumour. Yeah,
that's a rumour. It's recorded locally because it's got to be recorded. You don't actually have to give your name or anything along those lines when you're doing a stop and search. But it is recorded, but that is not put on a database or police national computer. Whereas if you're trying to go somewhere and it's going to flag up or get a job, that's a rumour.
So you don't have to give your name?
You don't have to give your name.
So how would they identify who you are? That's what I'm trying to think.
Yes, it's one of your rights. You don't have to give your name.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
The thing is, it's normally, so stop and search, sometimes people can give enough suspicion to a police officer in certain circumstances, not always, by refusing everything. It's like if you just, what's your name? Like having a bit of a conversation, you say, just whatever, Steve, Dave, whatever. Mm-hmm. Then you're building that rapport with a police officer. Whereas if you're going to be completely excluded from everything and say, all right, I'm not going to tell you anything. I'm not going to tell you, what are you doing? I'm not telling you. Yeah, it's 4:00 in the morning. What are you doing walking down the street? I'm not telling you. Well, where do you live? I'm not telling you. And it's like, hang on a minute, this guy could be up to something. Like that
makes you want to find out more.
Just come out of someone's driveway with a swag bag on your back, then you're probably thinking this guy's up to no good. But if all of a sudden they're like, oh, hello, so, I live here and this is my name. And
you're easy to comply with. So technically you can say, I'm not telling you X, Y, Z.
Yeah, you don't have to. You can refuse to give your details.
But then you'll just make the interaction more.
I'm talking sort of on a sociable level. Like if I come over to, my name's Anthony. How you doing? What you doing? This, that, and the other. You'd probably be more inclined to just say, hello, my name's whatever. But if you're being stopped and searched, just to the point of that, you don't have to give your name.
Okay. So what do you have to give?
Nothing.
So you can't. Your age, you don't give your address.
No.
Okay.
If something's found on you,
that would give it
for
away.
argument's sake, So I don't know. It
your
doesn't
ID.
matter. Something. Your ID, right? But if something's found on you that's criminal, right, prohibited article, then it's a reason to go to custody. Whereas maybe that could be dealt with on the street. So I would say maybe a small amount of cannabis, right, Class B drug, is found on you, and then you refuse to give all your details, you're going to probably go to custody. Whereas if you then say, "Oh, hello, my name's Dave, I live here, this is my age," and providing you're over the age of 18 in that circumstance, that could be dealt with on the street. You could look at community resolutions, which is a kind of a warning, or you can look at a public notice for disorder, a fixed penalty notice, which would fine if you've maybe got previous, or if you've been cautioned, then you're probably going to go to custody. But so you don't have to give details until an offence has occurred.
How much was the fine?
For cannabis?
Yeah, I'd say. Has it been always the same? Because I know we're in inflation now.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if it's going up with inflation. It was 80. It's now 90.
Okay. Right. But did you know about your rights?
I didn't know about my rights, and I also feel like schools should probably put more of an emphasis on telling us our rights, because if something like that does happen to you, you're more likely to panic if it's an unfamiliar situation. Yeah, and right. And then especially if you don't even know how you're supposed to act, how you're supposed to conduct yourself. Don't you think that should be emphasized more in schools, where we actually get to tell the children, okay, cool, if this happens, you're allowed to do this, this, and that, and you're not allowed to do this, this, and that.
Yeah, that's great, because most secondary schools have a police officer aligned to them. So that's maybe something that I can take back and say, look, this is the feedback that we're getting from this conversation. How about we do a stop and search talk in the schools, if the schools would be interested in it?
Yeah, I suppose that's a way of moving forward.
Yeah.
And plus, I think the Met Police always do workshops around stop and search or Q&As. It's just a matter of finding out how to publicise it a bit more. Yeah. But then would you, even though if it was publicised, would you actually attend it?
You mean as in
like workshops or Q&As? If you find out Anthony's doing a local workshop to erase any doubt that you may have or any questions that can be answered.
I think I probably would, but I know a lot of people that wouldn't, which is why I think like it should be mandatory. So for example, you'd come do an assembly in front of the students, explain to everyone their rights. And some people aren't initially interested in things. Some people, maybe all their friends are going out somewhere else, so they want to go with them, blah, blah, blah. But if it's a thing where you actually force it upon the kids, then they might take interest in the moment, and then they can actually learn. Sometimes people don't know what's good for them, right?
Yeah, because I think that we do go to the schools, but I don't know if where you go to school has a subject where it's emergency services.
Sorry?
There's a topic now at school where they do emergency service studies of some description. I can't think what it's, public services or something along those lines.
I don't recall any.
So we are right. Okay, I know they do it at Westminster College, and we do a lot of talks with them about it and things like that. But they're the people that genuinely have that interest and maybe want to do it as a career. Whereas you're talking about the people that don't, right?
Like in all of my time in education, I think I've had assemblies on various different things, but never anything to do with stop and search, and especially not to do with my rights in those situations.
Oh, okay. That's definitely something I can take back then.
Oh, okay. That's a bit of information.
Maybe that communication, right, that we were talking
about.
Yeah,
100%. Another question that popped in: can an officer go through your phone whilst doing the stop and search?
No.
Okay, right. So
if I for argument's sake, stopped you on the street now,
right? Yeah,
you're walking, but you're doing nothing wrong. You've got headphones on, walking along. I couldn't then say, I'm going to search you and get your phone out and start. Right, what's your PIN number?
Yeah.
Like no,
but then if I was on the phone call whilst you approach me or someone else saying we need to stop and search, I'll say I'm a bit busy right now. I'm on the phone. What would your initial response be, or has that even happened before?
Yeah, I mean,
well, I'm going somewhere. I'm busy. You're delaying me, because a lot of people, they're on the streets because they're going to a destination.
Like I say,
most of the time,
you have to have grounds for the stop and search, right? You have to have that level of suspicion or belief that you're going to have something on you. Now, if I don't have that, you're just walking down the street on your phone, whatever.
Okay, yeah.
I can't, and I'm recording this as well, so it's all being recorded. So if you then make a complaint, they'll be like, "Yeah, who's this officer that's just jumped out and said?"
Yeah. Now my follow-up question is: what are the grounds? What's reasonable grounds for suspicion?
So it's intelligence led essentially. So it might be a phone call from a member. There's a whole host of them, but it might be like a telephone call from a member of the public. It might be just circumstantial, like I said earlier. If you're walking out of someone's driveway at 4 o'clock in the morning, pitch black, and it's like, I know the person that lives there, and you don't live there, and then you're being totally evasive to what I'm saying. And I know there's loads of burglaries going on in the area. I'm going to be thinking, okay, this guy could be involved in committing offences around here, right? So, and he's got a backpack on, and I'm thinking, right, okay, could have something on him. There's windows smashed behind him. Right,
That makes sense.
I mean, that's obviously a really easy stop and search, right? I think as a member of public,
it's based on.
I want that guy to be searched.
It's based on the intelligence that is available to you, and also what you see, and you put puzzle together.
And it just develops around you as well.
Yeah, because I remember speaking to Mo before, and he said prior to actually going on air, he said that some people get stopped just because of the way they dress, because it's what the police officer sees, or stereotypes. Is that what you're saying the other day?
Yeah. So like, let's say hypothetically, you hear that somebody walking around with a red jacket may have a weapon on them, and that's all the information you have to go off. The person can't provide any more detail than that, and then you see one person in the street in the area with a red jacket. Would that be enough grounds to stop them and search?
That's a great question. Potentially, yes, because you're acting on intelligence for that area. But you'd probably, personally, I'd probably want a little bit more information. Right? Okay, how old's this person? Male or female? You know. Are they anything other distinguishing features? You know, do they have like tattoos or certain hairstyle or whatever? You know, if it's just a person in a red jacket and you're outside Arsenal Football Club, you're probably going to see 40,000 people in red jackets, and you're going to be thinking, okay, I'm not going to search. I'm not going to search one, because if I search one, I've got to search all 40,000 people. You know, so I'm going to want a little bit more than that. But if it's like a nightclub's throwing out, and there's like the last 20 people, and they say, someone in a red jacket, and there's one person coming out of that nightclub in a red jacket, I'm thinking, okay, that's the person. Right, so it is sort of circumstantial, and it does depend on what you're given at the time and where you are. Yeah, it's not quite as transparent as or simple. There's quite a lot of involvement in it, and also the officer. It's quite nerve-wracking for them as well.
It's a lot of.
They know that they're gonna. Or potentially come across someone with a knife in their pocket or whatever it may be.
It's a lengthy mind process.
Well, you don't know that person either, so they could be violent.
How successful would you say your stop and searches are? Like, out of all of the stop and searches, how often do you think you actually find someone with something?
The statistic at the minute for the UK, this is not London. London has half the stop and searches, is 1 in 5, give or take, about 20%. Is successful. Something's found on that person that's prohibited, right? So, drugs, weapon, whatever. So it's 1 in 5.
That's interesting, because I was going to ask the same thing. How effective is stop and search? But he's already asked it. Yeah. But then obviously we know there's like a section 60. We don't even most people do have questions around that, or what is that exactly to begin with?
A section 60 has to be authorised first by a rank no less than inspector, so someone above the rank of inspector or above, and it can last for a certain period of time, and it is always or largely going to be in an area where there's serious violence has either happened or is likely to happen. So maybe there's some intelligence that these two gangs are going to meet in this location, then an inspector's going to say, right, anyone in that area that's of that demographic is going to get stopped, and you don't need that reasonable grounds for suspicion. You just say, I'm searching you under section 60. This is the authorising officer, and this is how long it's on for. And it's to find weapons, essentially. So articles or instruments that are going to be used in violence. That's a section 60.
Is there a separate statistic for section 60?
There is a separate statistic. What, and how many are successful? I don't have that to answer.
I heard something like 2% approximately on section 60, but it sounded a bit unrealistic, and I was like,
yeah, I mean, like, we wouldn't go to an area, like what we're saying, it's going to be for that demographic of people. So if you know two gangs are meeting up, you're then probably not going to search the 90-year-old lady that's, coming home from the shops, right? You're just not going to do it, but you could. Ultimately, you could.
Yeah,
it's there. But you're still going to be a little bit more sort of savvy with the use of
that's true.
60. But I don't know the actual statistic for the success rate of, or if we can call it success rate, but like finding an article on that person. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, does an officer have to show you proof of a section 60 that it's been issued, or
so there's a reference that you could give them. So if they were to make a complaint and say, or phone up 101 and say, oh, I've been searched under section 60, was there one in the area? We can look at it's called a CAD, and they can look at it and say, yes, there was one in the area.
Okay, so you can verify if that's true or not. But you can't.
An officer, I'll be honest, would never say it if it wasn't true. Because like we say, it's being recorded
100%,
by
yeah.
10, 15 officers in the area. If they're just making that up, people are going to be like...
Yeah, a bit suspicious.
Yeah.
That's it. How many sections are there? So there's section 60.
Oh, what?
For stop and search.
Of search.
Yeah, stop and search related.
The predominant ones, what's used all the time is section 1 of PACE, which is to find your everyday articles on people that are prohibited, so like weapons, stolen articles, whatever it may be. Then you have the Misuse of Drugs Act, which is another one, which is obviously to find drugs on people. And then you have ones under the Terrorism Act, you have ones under the Firearm Act, you have the Section 60 as well. So you have there's a few, but the main one is Misuse of Drugs Act. That's the one that's used most of the time.
Okay, yeah, because I didn't even know that prior. So how can a police officer search someone of the opposite sex?
Yes, yeah, but it depends on the level of searching. So you've got different levels of searching. It's like an onion, isn't it? We're going sort of...
You're unraveling the information, because there's so much things that we don't know.
Yeah.
Or shall I say, people or our viewers may be asking the questions. So we just... what I've done prior is just gather some questions from local young adults. They said, we want you to ask this. And that's what we're doing currently today.
So I talk on a personal level. If I was searching a female, first I'm probably going to call for a female officer. Because it removes that, okay, this guy was just doing something that made that female feel uncomfortable, and I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But if someone said, a shop for argument's sake, they've said, oh, that lady's just stolen this. It's in her handbag. I'll search her handbag. That's fine, because that's not too intrusive.
Of course, yeah.
But if it's anything more than, maybe if I'm going to do anything more hands-on, I'd probably request a female officer as well.
But if you had to, you can.
I can.
Okay.
Yeah, but not a strip search, an intimate search.
No. Just a stop and search.
Stop and search.
On the street.
Yeah.
Just a normal pat down. That's it. Go through the pockets.
Exactly that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Go on.
Sorry, do you think that... Okay, so statistically, males are going to be more responsible for violent crimes than females, right? So do you feel like you'd be more inclined to search a male rather than a female if you had, let's say you were in an area, let's say it was a Section 60 kind of thing, and you're in an area where there are, both genders. Do you feel like if you're going to search one, you'd be more inclined to search the male because you feel like, okay, cool, statistically, it's probably more likely to be responsible?
Yes, so over 90% of searches are on males. So it's like it's less than 1 in 10 are on females. So if I just use that statistic, then yes, probably.
Do you think that's justifiable? Like, do you think it's fair to not always, but generally assume that the male's going to be responsible rather than the female? Or carrying, at least. Yeah,
it's really interesting because there's no reason why females don't commit or wouldn't commit a crime.
But it is hard,
I think that it's more likely. I don't know. There's probably a real, much more of a deep-rooted reason why more males are stop and searched, but it's predominantly males, and it's predominantly people in your age range as well. So anyone from, I think it's like 15 to 30, you're like 70% more likely to get stopped.
Yeah, I think I know what he's coming from, because he's obviously, we're living in society where it's equal rights and everything, and sometimes you got to go with statistics. As much as equal as things are, if statistics are showing that it's more males which are committing certain crimes or more female, you got to go with what the data shows. Sometimes, logically speaking.
So just on the data, but I don't want to bore you too much with that. It's more likely that a female is going to commit fraud offences than violent crime.
Because it's not within their characteristics to be violent.
Yeah. And that's just more in their makeup, right, as a female.
Okay, yeah. So it's things like this tend to paint the picture for proceeding forward with things. But it doesn't make it 100% right, but it gives you a good indication.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. What do you think? Does that make more sense?
Yeah, I agree. I also think that statistically, if a certain group, like if males tend to be committing more crimes, and from your own personal experience, when you stop males, they tend to be committing more violent crimes, then it does make sense that intuitively, because we go off our gut feelings, that generally you're going to go off the assumption that it's probably going to be the male rather than the female. And if most of the time you're right, and it's helping you, you know, stop crime and I guess even save lives, it makes sense that you would go for that course of action.
Cool, yeah. I feel like we've been talking a lot about statistics.
Yeah, we'll move on.
Yeah.
So,
No, but
they're good to have, right?
Yeah,
It just
of
gives you a
course.
sort of a representation of
100%.
of what's happening.
So that sometimes it'll be good to have Google just ready and just Google something quickly, but don't have that at the moment, unfortunately. But I do want to ask in terms of stop and searching someone with a disability, because we do know not every disability is visible to the eye, and if you do happen to stop and search and find out, or an indication is given off that someone may be on the spectrum or something similar, how does that get dealt with? For example, are officers trained to a certain extent?
Yeah, so mental health has been highlighted quite a lot in recent years. So the training has really sort of vamped up on mental health. It was there, but it's got better, I think. And so has the training on stop and search, because it's a real hot topic, right? That's in the news quite a lot.
Yeah.
So they're really pushing that from a training perspective. So to be able to sort of identify it's probably more recognised now than it ever has been. And also the way that the officer communicates, they're probably a lot, well, I think, are becoming better at how they're dealing with everyone, you know, members of the public, but in particular identifying mental health as well. It's not to say that people with certain disabilities don't commit crime. That happens.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So they will be stopped and searched throughout time. But I think that it's handled. I think all of them should be handled sensitively anyway. But I think that people will identify, that police officers will identify mental health.
Yeah. I think
quite quickly we deal with quite well. A lot of our work is mental health.
Yeah, I could imagine it can be very challenging or tough to even figure out what your next step should be without causing too much emotional harm or something like that, because you got to be careful when you do things like this and in society you don't know who you're going to come across, and you got to deal with everyone in a different capacity. So it's definitely a tough gig to have, because you don't know who you're going to encounter.
This is why for me it's that kind of that engagement, right? It's that initial engagement, and that can set the tone for the entire.
That's the thing, yeah. Because your role essentially has that foundation to get familiar with people, and you become more recognized when people end up getting comfortable at some point. And if it was to be a stop and search happening from you or anyone, they know it's nothing personal or you're just doing your job. There'll be more understanding, and things will go much more smooth, I suppose. But yeah, it's just. It's tough when you see someone that you've never seen in your life just pulls out of a van and just doesn't say anything, stops and searches you, and you're just there and still trying to absorb everything. But yeah, definitely community engagement from the Met is something that is vital to have around.
I also think that aftercare is important as well. So after the stop and search, so are you aware of, you know, why this happened and why we did it? Particularly if you don't find anything, you know, make sure that person's okay and what their rights are afterwards.
Especially these days when you get stopped and searched, and then you get people with the public walking around bringing out their phone and start filming, because that's the norm these days. That's what people tend to do. First thing, when someone's having some sort of emergency, instead of them calling 999 or 111, they'll bring up a social media app and start filming. Yeah. When that should be the last thing on your mind is to film someone having a seizure fit or get whatever it may be. But unfortunately, it still happens. People do feel the need to create entertainment through someone's downfall, I suppose. But yeah, definitely, if you see someone getting filmed, it will definitely play on their self-esteem. But yeah, the aftercare is definitely something that is important, because you don't know how the person might be feeling, especially if the person doesn't speak English or anything. That's what I was going to ask you as well. How do you deal with people who are non-English speakers that you stop and search under Section 60 or any other reason?
Whatever it may be. Yeah. So it's trying to establish what language they do speak. The specific language as well.
The dialect.
Exactly that.
Okay,
and then we have what's called language line. So that's on our radios. It's just a speed dial through. I'm a Metropolitan Police officer. I need this language. And they'll put us through to an interpreter. So we'll then talk into that, our radio, and the radio will talk back. It's a loudspeaker, essentially, to the person in the language that they understand.
Has it been a moment where there was no individual that speaks a certain language?
It might take a couple of minutes. but I've never come across a time when that hasn't happened. And I've worked across Westminster where you've got pretty much every language.
It's a diverse community.
Very diverse, and a lot of holiday makers and everything else. So I'm quite used to communicating with people in other language. Not me personally, but using the facility.
I did not know that the Met had that kind of service available. Is it 24/7?
24/7.
Yeah, did you know that?
No.
So if you come across I'm not sure other countries have this, but maybe I could be mistaken. But yeah, it's crazy to think there's so much attention being paid to this. I wouldn't say small. It's not small detail. It's a massive thing. It's a communication barrier if you can't speak a certain language. But then how are you going to do your job, which has been thought through very well.
Yeah, they're considering all different scenarios and possibilities.
Yeah, 100%. It's just because when you think of different countries and different dialects, you have different tribes as well. They speak different dialects within them, I suppose.
Yeah.
So just thinking.
So some countries have a number of different languages. So it's quite pinpointing that language, what they speak, getting the translator for them.
So how would you pinpoint it? Because before you make the call to get the translator, you have to tell them what language they're speaking, or demand the language that you want to be put through to.
So a lot of countries, and people don't have to do this, but they carry identity cards. So they see a police officer in front of them, and they might be from they're from a different country, obviously, but where policing is different. So they might have to show their identity there. Policing across the world is different from country to country. So they naturally, and you can see maybe it's got a flag on it or whatever, you can identify what it is. So that's probably the most common way of identifying it. Or it's asking, a lot of people understand where you're from in English. A lot of countries speak English. As an English person, we're quite lazy and we don't learn other languages as well as some of these other countries. Yeah,
we expect everyone to speak it.
English, right?
Even on holiday, you think people speak English and then they're like, no, we don't speak English. But yeah, it's unfortunate. I think I've experienced that a few times going abroad when I'm expecting people to just understand me. And then when they don't, I get a bit offended as well. I'm like, but then again, it's their country. I should be adapting to their language, dialect or whatever it may be. But then again, I think we've become so accustomed that the whole world is learning English, so we think it should be like the normal thing to expect of people. But yeah, that's actually amazing to find out you've got a service there 24/7. So these people don't. I'm just thinking about 24/7, and do they get used a lot?
Yeah, they get used all the time, but some languages get used a lot less than others.
What's the most common language you'd say that is
probably Spanish.
Is it? Okay.
Well, Spanish is probably the most.
Half the world is you got South America.
Yeah,
that's pretty much apart from Brazil. Apart from Brazil is Portuguese.
So maybe Spanish. A lot of French in there. But I wouldn't know.
Yeah, so many different languages. Yeah, I suppose. And obviously, the other day I googled how when was Stop and Search introduced, being in the Met. How has Stop and Search evolved?
Yeah.
Throughout the years of, was it 14 years?
Yeah, I was in Surrey for 4.5, 5 years.
But altogether, yeah. Have you seen Stop and Search evolve massively, or is it?
Definitely. So there was a massive shake-up in the police in around about 1984, which was the introduction of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, 1984. And that's kind of where it started evolving. And for me now, where we're at, nearly 40 years later, it's very much a focus on that whole communication piece. It still exists and it's going to exist. I think it's been debated in Parliament a lot of times, and they've said, no, this is going to happen. This is going to be a thing that we need on the streets. I think now officers are a lot more engaging. The communication is better. They know what they have to say, because ultimately they're being filmed as well. I point at my chest there all the time because that's where my body camera is. So they know that they're being filmed. They know that their colleagues filming. And they know that members of the public are getting their phones out as well. So the police officers, I think, are a lot more professional, a lot more aware, and are not. They've rehearsed it in their head what they're going to say and how they're going to say it. And sometimes it's very much off the cuff, and it just becomes natural now. But they're a lot more sort of concerning, and welfare is paramount.
Yeah, I think whilst you're describing that, I agree with.
I'm not saying police get it right 100% of the time.
No.
But
Yeah, but
I think the aftercare side of things is getting a lot better.
100%.
That way of,
and I think, yeah, with the involvement of stop and search, when you're mentioning body cams, I think that is a big noticeable thing that has been implemented or put in the first place. Because then how are others held accountable? Whether you're a police officer or just a civilian, how do you know what happened? How do you even track it in the first place? So yeah, with the body cams, I don't think that's very old. Is it? How long has it been? Couple years, would you say?
Yeah, so body cams were introduced a few years ago, but they are now used by every officer. Maybe in the last 4 or 5 years, every officer has that. It's on their kit now. It's like you have your body camera. So you'll see all police officers.
So it's non-negotiable. You have to have it on.
You can't always have it on because batteries could die. I've done shifts that have sort of exceeded 30 hours, and my battery's not going to last 30 hours. But
yeah, that's a long time.
Exceptional. So that's a rarity. That doesn't happen.
30-hour shift. That must be intense. I think the
longest is 36 hours. The longest I did. But yeah, that was.
How did you manage to pull through 36 hours? Because that's just.
You do have breaks, right?
Yeah, but regardless, 36 hours is someone's week, right? Some people had to do that in 1 week, but if
we're talking in those exceptional circumstances, like, and I'll bring back sort of London riots and things like that.
Right.
You know, that's
then
particularly if you're public order trained, right? You need it.
100%. Yeah.
Of course, you get breaks. You know, you're not standing.
What is it? 1 hour break or an hour and a half? Maybe just
a little bit of time a little bit of downtime.
No, that's good to know. That's good to know. So with the body cams, if the camera is off and you're getting stop and search, are you allowed to decline the stop and search unless the body cam is on?
No. No, okay. Stop and search is a stop and search. It's a power that's a legal power that a police officer has. And like I say, it's an offence to not refuse it, but to be... Well, if you run off, that's an offence. Because then you could be looking at maybe assault or some sort of resisting. But
What? Okay, I didn't know that because some do say, you know, if the camera is not on...
I mean, there are offences like obstruction and things like that, but... Yeah, it's going to happen one way or the other, to be completely honest. It's
okay.
And no one ever wants to use force in these circumstances.
No, definitely not.
It's something that could be used and probably justifiable in the circumstances.
Could you record it yourself while you're getting stopped and searched?
There's nothing in law that says you can't. No. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people do. That's how they end up on social media, right? A lot of stop and searches do end up on YouTube, or a friend records it or whatever. But it's normally, I say normally, it's not the norm, but people do record stop and searches on their phones.
Have people recorded you while you were stopping people and searching them?
Yeah, I mean, I'm recording them, so I'm okay with it. It's not a problem. You know, I have a body camera, and I tell people, like, you know, and police officers do tell people you're being recorded, and then. What we have afterwards is actually one today. It's a stop and search group where we invite members of the public in to just review them at random. We don't say, which one would you like to see? Here's 3 that we know are excellent. Maybe you could pick one of these. We'll just literally, you choose the whole list of them. You just pick one and you can watch them. So you can see how that officer's been.
How often does this take place?
There's all different groups. So to be honest, I don't know, but I could definitely get the information.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to find out. Yeah. So we know some people may not be happy with the way they've been dealt with, or some people just don't really care. They're just going with their day. But for those that have the right to complain but don't, how would you bring up the fact that it's important to put your views out there? Do they really contribute to something if you was to make a formal complaint about something, or is it better to just leave it?
So I think the reason that police officers are getting better at stop and search is through complaints. It's feedback, essentially.
So it's being used.
If we know that someone's done a particularly, maybe not done a stop and search, you know, by the book, we can review that, and then we can look at that and we can use that in training. And say, that this is how not to do it, this is how to do it, and then you can compare the two and the differences and how things go wrong or right, whatever it may be. So
things can come out of it, because some people tend to believe that there's no point of putting forward a complaint or saying how you've been dealt with because nothing's going to change. But then you've clearly said now that it does help in shaping.
Definitely. It depends what you want as the individual from the complaint as well. If you want it to be alerted to police to provide them with feedback and get them better at their job, that's probably going to happen. If you want, I don't know, a load of compensation, then you know,
it's debatable.
That might not happen. So it depends what you want as the individual. I think most people complain because they want the police to be better at their jobs. And it's not necessarily, they might be angry at the time, but if we learn from that, then...
Speaking of police officers being better at their jobs, we've already touched on the person who's being searched and their conduct and how they behave, right? Do you feel like a lot of police, how many police officers do you think, and how big of an issue do you think it is in terms of the police officers' conduct and how the police officers conduct their searches?
So I used to review the stop and searches, and I don't really come across many ones that I would say, yeah, this is legitimate. Most complaints that people make from stop and searches get nothing comes of it. There's no further action from it because what the police officer's done is completely legal. It's completely in the framework, and people just complain because they've been stopped and searched, and they tend to be the ones that are drawn to our attention. But like with body cameras now, it's so easy to review and see that police officer either doing something that they shouldn't be doing or doing something spot on, and then going back to that person and saying, actually, the police officer, you can watch this if you want. They've done everything fine, which does happen a lot because people complain because it's quite intrusive, right? They don't
100%.
They don't want to be stopped and searched.
How long does the footage remain in storage after? Does it get deleted, or do you?
No, so we can save it for a period of time, so years and years and years if we want. So particularly if it's going to be used in a criminal investigation. So say we always talk about the negatives of stop and search. If it's a positive stop and search, you found something that's someone shouldn't have, and that instance going to court, and that gets saved, and court can go on for a long time.
So you got positive and negative stop and search. So what's the difference between the two?
So I'm sort of using positive and negative. It's not a term that I'm just using it for this.
Oh, in this
positive
conversation.
Positive as in a positive stop and search where an item has been found.
Oh yeah.
Or a negative stop and search where something hasn't, or if I'm sort of saying negative stop
search.
and search.
Right. Like if you falsely...
The member of the public has become disgruntled.
Oh, in that sense, I understand what you meant. So I was a bit thinking, what does that mean? But
positive outcome, I think I should say.
Yeah, that makes for the Met. Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, for everybody, right? For finding a knife or
for
a gun
protecting
on
society.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Anything else you got in mind, Mo?
Do you feel like you see Section 60, right? Do you feel like it gives officers maybe too much power to the point where they can abuse it? Like, let's say you have a police officer who maybe dislikes certain ethnic groups, right? Do you feel like they could utilize this power that comes with Section 60 to, maybe oppress people?
I'll be honest, of all the police officers I've met, and like I said, I've been doing it for a while, I've never come across someone that wants to be oppressive. I appreciate that some pockets of the community and society may see that, but I haven't never come across it. I'll be totally honest, and I'm not doing this for the sake of making you feel better about things. I'm doing it that I've never met a police officer that comes in, and I'm not saying that this doesn't exist. I'm just saying from my perspective that I've never come across it. I've never met like an officer that sits there and says, I don't like this community, or I don't like these sort of people, or I don't like this, or I don't like that. I've never happened. But is it? I wouldn't say it's there to be abused, because particularly with regards to a Section 60, you're going to flood that area with police officers. So if one police officer is acting unprofessionally, I think his colleagues now were quite transparent, or very transparent about how we act, and one of the colleagues would pick that up and say, no, that officer's being out of order, this isn't right, and then that'll be reported up the chain, and
that's true.
I dare say that they would then review everything that officer's done and maybe look at.
It's rare to do a stop and search in with a Section 60 by yourself as a solo police officer.
Very, very unlikely.
Because
it's an area of violence is likely
exactly.
to
So you need backup.
So you're probably not going to be there just wandering around. Yeah,
exactly. So if there was such thing to happen, there would always be other police officers witnessing, and there's a body cam as well. So I suppose different things do play into account. But then, are there any rumours that you would say are a bit myth busting that you've heard around stop and search that you feel like should be addressed? I'm
trying to think. I don't know.
It's like, for example, with searching someone's phone. That's been a rumour.
That's myth. But the only thing you'd look at someone's phone is their IMEI number if you thought it might be stolen. So that's what you're looking at. You can't unsee things as well. So if a text message pops up, I've got your phone. Text message pops up and says whatever it may say. I can't unsee that, but I've not gone through your phone to find that message. Right. I can check its IMEI number to see if it's stolen. if it's stolen, then that's an offence in itself, right? But
yeah, because there's always some sort of rumours or misunderstanding that people have.
I think we've done the record as well. It doesn't go on. Stored, but it's not.
It won't prevent you from going to Miami on a holiday, no. Right? That's because I think people say, I can't go to America, I can't do this, and
not because of a stop. I mean, if it's been found, that
I think they're less concerned. They're less concerned about getting a job.
A lot of class on you, then maybe that might.
Yeah. Prevent things later on. Hypothetically, you took someone's phone, and then you obviously can't unsee messages, and then you see a very suspicious text. Like, then are you then allowed to search the phone?
No, so you need to get authority to do like an intrusive search on someone's phone, and that's the rank of an inspector or above. And again, they're probably not going to be standing there next to me, and I've got to fill in a lot of paperwork and say this is why I want to do it. If they've committed an offence, you might seize their phone and then do that retrospectively, but you can't just say, "Oh, right, your phone, I'm going to have that, right? I'm going to store that, and then I'm going to look at that later on." You can't do that. Nor can I do it in front of you there and then. But like I say, I can't unsee something. So say I'm suspecting you of maybe dealing drugs, right? And then I'll stop you and I search and I find some drugs on you and I'll get your phone and someone says, "Oh, can you bring me a load of whatever?" And it's like, oh, hang on a minute. I've stopped you. You've got drugs on you now. Because there's different offences, right? Now I'm going to be looking at concern in the supply or possession with intent to supply.
You just end up adding them on.
It's a lot more of a serious offence than simple possession. So
if police officers can't search our phones, in schools, there have been times where in schools they'll tell you, we need to search your phone, right? And if a police officer can't justify searching my phone, how can my teachers justify it? Or are the teachers just, I guess, almost lying about what their rights are?
I think they've probably got different policy and procedures to the police, but I couldn't just take your phone now, right? As I'm a police officer, right? I've got a warrant card with me, this, that, and the other. I can't just go, let's have your phone. I'm going to look for it. I can't do that. Yeah. Whereas a teacher, they might be doing it for their reasons, but that's their kind of policy and procedure. It's not.
Oh, okay.
Maybe ask your teacher when you go to school.
Yeah, but like I say, if you're always polite to people, is there anything you want to look at it? Like maybe I can show you what you're looking for. That, and I'm just talking going off piece there, but that teacher's probably less inclined to go, I'm going to look for everything because Mo's willing to just pass me his phone and say, yeah, there you go. This is what is it you're looking for? Here's my camera or whatever. Yeah,
that's pretty much. That's straight to the point. So with stop and search, let's say you do find something on someone, what are the risks? What are the consequences? Shall I say? When you do gain a criminal record, essentially, when you do get prosecuted. We know certain jobs you can't apply to, or there's DBS, and there's two types of DBS. There's a standard DBS and there's an enhanced DBS. So, what's the difference between the two, and what jobs can't you essentially get once you've been charged with certain?
Well, I think the job is
stop and search
down to that profession. So if you're applying for a job in maybe a pharmaceutical company and you're a known drug dealer, they're probably going to think twice about hiring you, because that will show on the checks that they conduct, right? They ask for a police national computer check, that shows up.
Would that be on a normal DBS, or is it?
That would be on a normal one, yeah. So they'll look at your police record, essentially. So serious offences are going to show up straight away. Things like community resolutions, they might not be on the standard DBS check, and that's like an involvement you've had with the police where you've admitted an offence, potentially low-level offence, and it's a warning that's stored locally on the police computer. So if you committed in the Metropolitan Police area, be stored in the Metropolitan Police, but for argument's sake, Surrey Police wouldn't have access to that information just off a check on you. So that's stored locally. So that potentially wouldn't come. Another myth that we're going to bust is if you are a juvenile, so over the age of 10 up to 18, and you commit an offence, you still have a police record.
Unfortunately.
It still counts. It doesn't get wiped when you're 18. And it's like what we were talking about yesterday, not when you're 17 years and coming up to your 18th birthday, you can commit as many offences as you want because they're getting wiped. No. It stays on your record. It stays.
Until the last day.
Till your last day.
That's it,
your dying day.
A lot of people have the misconception that...
Yeah, I have that a lot. People say, I'm under 18. I can kind of do what I want. It's
like,
it doesn't work like that.
Free pass.
Yeah.
Crazy how people actually believe that's facts and they go ahead thinking, they're confident about it.
But really. I think that's why they do get confident, because it's this belief that's just come from nowhere, and they think...
I wonder where it came from or who started it.
Yeah.
Well, whoever started it definitely made them believe it was true.
I think it's the whole prison. You know, you're under 18, you're not going to adult prison, are you? You're going somewhere else. But these places that you go to still exist. And it's still a record, still a crime. Yeah,
fair enough. Yeah, that makes sense. I think we covered a fair amount of questions, myth busting. It was definitely a good conversation. A lot of people that are going to be viewing this are going to have their questions answered, hopefully. And did we miss anything else?
I don't know.
I think we covered a fair amount of stuff. But if I do end up coming up with different questions, I'll make sure to just signpost people to your team.
Yeah, or have me back. I'm happy to talk this through and talk about
You're in the South Tuesdays and Thursdays, you said?
South Wednesdays and Thursdays.
Wednesdays and Thursdays.
On the World's End, essentially.
Okay, and then the North would...
on Tuesdays and Fridays.
Okay.
And then we'll do home visits on Monday, so go to people's addresses that are interested, right? And we'll talk what we can offer and what we can do. Yeah,
we need more of community engagement from different sides, because I think it's something that we can't get enough of. You can't put a limit on it.
Yeah, right.
It has to be ongoing. You can't just stop it.
Yeah.
Because as human beings, we thrive off engagement with people. You know, we communicate, and if we just stop that, then...
Well, particularly from a police perspective, if we can divert people from crime, right? That's a win for everybody, isn't it?
100%, yeah.
That person, society, everyone.
Yeah, you can do it at the basic level, just, having a simple conversation.
Got to get in early, I think.
Yeah. Well, on that note, everyone, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having
us. We'll hopefully see you lot around. And everyone, if you liked what you saw today, please don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.